Here's an insight from Suze Orman: owning a home is a keystone of wealth, both financial affluence and emotional security. Most probably consider the concept of having a credit score to establish just how credible you might be as it pertains to financial lending institutions as a relatively new phenomenon. But the notion of an all-encompassing credit score has actually been with us for quite a while. And as it pertains to the United States of America in particular, the first real inklings of a modern credit scoring system arose in the 19th century. For it was at this time that the rapid industrialization necessitated a more scientific means of judging a borrower's character other than just the personal testimony of acquaintances. Credit bureaus were established to specialize in these fact-finding missions, and they used their own rudimentary means to score applicants of their creditworthiness. Although better than running all over town to chase down hearsay about a potential borrower's character, this system was still rather hit or miss. It wasn't until the middle of the 20th century, however, that a mathematician named Earl Isaac and an engineer by the name of Bill Fair devised a completely automated system with which one could ascertain how good someone's credit actually was. Their system utilized factors deemed to determine whether someone was a good or bad credit risk, based on their past financial history, and assigned them a number ranking how high they scored. Bill and Earl continued to work on their credit scoring system over the next couple of decades, and by the time the Fair Credit Reporting Act came out in 1970, the idea that there should be a standardized method of collecting credit reports was becoming the norm. The next major milestone came in 1989 when the modern parameters of the FICO score, utilizing a range from 300 to 850, was made the gold standard of credit scoring. Under this scoring system, someone who manages to get a score as high as 750 is considered to have an excellent credit rating. Anyone under 700, meanwhile, isn't considered excellent, but still considered to be quite good. But if one finds their score hovering between 580 and 669, they are ranked as being just average. If your score barely pushes up past 300, however, your credit ranking will be considered poor. And with this poor ranking, as you might imagine, dealing with potential lenders would be a difficult prospect. What impact does credit have on real estate? Unless you go through a personal lender who is willing to look past a bad credit history, having a decent line of credit is fundamental when it comes to securing loans for projects in real estate. The state of your credit is how a potential lender determines whether or not you can make good on returning to them what they lend. Without it, you won't have much in the way of OPM to work with. And without OPM, you will be hard-pressed to deliver any real and meaningful leverage in real estate. Without being able to leverage properties through loans. And in order to secure a loan, you need good credit. Dealing in real estate would be difficult if not impossible without it. Yes, you could hypothetically save up money and buy properties outright with cash, but such a model is simply not sustainable. Cash runs out. We need our money for other things. Besides day-to-day expenses, a real estate investor will need a good amount of money saved up for potential repairs and upgrades on a home. Without acquiring a little OPM, the investor would be at a severe disadvantage. Having that said, for the would-be real estate investor, their credit and the loan-based leverage that they can secure with it is everything. What's the best way to get good credit? If your credit isn't that great, don't worry. There are things that you can do right now to get it back into tip-top shape. It might take a little time, but it will be worth it in the long run. There is no secret magic to getting a good credit score. It just takes routine, regular payments to an established financial institution. If your score is good enough to get a credit card, for example, routine payments to a credit card company can be quite helpful in boosting your credit score. Obviously, only take out a credit card if you can handle paying it, since of course, defaulting on that said card would only dig even deeper into the bad credit hole that you're already in. If you can't or are unwilling to get a credit card, another credit building option that might be available to you is that of getting a secured card. Unlike a credit card, a secured card is actually secured by way of the user offering up a security deposit for the card. After this initial deposit is made, a credit line can be established. Just like a credit card, a secured card will require routine payments, which if kept up over time will indeed help improve one's credit score. Another option that those seeking to get a better credit score might want to try is to have someone who already has established credit put them down as what's known as an authorized user on one of their credit cards. The interesting thing about all this is that even though such a situation makes someone an authorized user, the responsibility for paying the bills is still on the primary user. Having that said, as long as the primary user is responsible enough to keep up with their payments, it will have a positive effect on the authorized user just for tagging along. If all else fails, and you are unable to secure a line of credit to build up your score with, the best thing you can do is simply pay all of the bills that you do have on time. If you have utility bills such as gas and electric, make sure that they are always, and I repeat always, on time, because such things do indeed reflect upon your credit history. And last but not least, one final piece of advice I have to give is to avoid overdoing credit checks with potential lending companies. What do I mean by that? Well, it's simple really. If you apply to receive credit for various kinds of credit cards in a short period of time, it will result in too many of what are known as hard pulls against one's credit. This isn't good. These multiple hard pulls from lenders can actually have an adverse effect on the very score that you are trying to improve. The reason for this is because the system finds it suspect that one would constantly be attempting to create so many different lines of credit. They essentially think that you are perhaps attempting to rob Peter in order to pay Paul. Even if this is not the case, this is simply how the platform will interpret it, and this behavior will result in a hit against your overall credit score, dropping it down even lower than it already was. Still stuck with bad credit, what can you do? It's not fun being stuck with bad credit. And for someone wishing to gain leverage in their wheeling and dealings in the world of real estate, it can seem like a fundamental roadblock to their career. As mentioned, obtaining OPM, and in particular OPM through loans, is important in real estate. But even if you do have bad credit, don't give up hope. There are still some further options to consider. First of all, you should consider contacting all of the creditors that you are delinquent with on your credit report. This might seem like a daunting task, but tackling your debt problem head-on is the best way to go forward. Also, you need to check and see if all of the debts listed on your report are in fact debts. Some of them might in fact be errors, and the only way to uncover them is to contact the creditors listed. I've had this experience myself on my own credit report, except in my case, it was someone attempting to steal my identity. The red flag came when a creditor magically appeared under my name, for a company that I've never done business with, at a personal address that I've never lived in. To make a long story short, this person was racking up a huge bill with Sprint from their residence in California while I was on the other side of the country. Yes, such fraudulent acts do occur, and we have to stay vigilant, periodically checking our credit report to make sure everything is legitimate. In my case, all I had to do was contact Sprint, and they rather quickly confirmed that there was no way that I was the one racking up that California phone bill. They then deployed their fraud team on the case, and that fraudulent listing was removed from my credit report. Fortunately, this rectified the situation and brought me back into good standing. So please take my advice. From my own personal experience, anything on your credit report that shouldn't be there needs to be reported and promptly removed immediately.